welcome to today's talk show. We're here for another TEMO Talkshow, from strategies to organizational capabilities. We have a very distinguished guest with us today. He comes from Novo Nordisk, which is a global healthcare company who's been innovative and leading the industry in health innovation for 90 years, best known probably for diabetes care. It is headquartered in Denmark, has 38,000 employees, and exists in 75 countries and markets its products to 180 countries. Bård Grande is the corporate vice president of Novo Nordisk, and he has been with the company for 10 years. He heads up the global talent and organizational development area. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Bård.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. Actually, you're wrong. We're not 38,000, we're 42,000. That was last year.
Sorry.
So we're actually in an industry, diabetes, which is, unfortunately for societies, growing almost exponentially. So we grow with the market, so to speak. I'll tell you a little bit about how we work on the topic of organizational development and this STAR model, which we also use in our shape, and a couple of the learnings we have had over the years trying to get our managers in Novo Nordisk to be even better at organizational development. Just one slide about our company, 42,000 employees now. Probably if I came back next week, it would be 40,000, 2,500. We hire between 5,000 and 6,000 people globally every year. We have, of course, some people leave our company. It's a mystery to us why they do it, but they do. But then we have net growth of about 4,000 every year, which is a huge challenge to get a lot of people into the organization to understand how we work, what our products and strategy and so forth. For us, I'm in HR, one of the challenges is that we have 700 newly appointed managers every year. Of course, we have a lot of managers who move from one managerial position to another. So we have about 1,100 managers in new managerial positions every year, but 700 first-time managers, which is also a big challenge to have them through training and so forth. I will go right into how we focus on growing our organization. We focus on three kind of ways of assessing whether we're successful or not. First of all is, of course, organizational performance, and that's a factor which is very different depending on where you work in the organization. We are a full value chain organization, so we have basic R&D, we have production, we have sales, we have marketing, and all support functions. So everybody has performance targets, balanced scorecard targets, so forth. So of course, organizational performance is a good indicator of whether the organization is working or not. But you can have unhealthy performance. So we also measure what we call organizational health, which is absence, sickness leave, it's engagement levels. We survey all our employees every year to see what they feel about the company, about their own manager and so forth. It is measuring stress. So we are always trying to say, we want high organizational performance, of course, as any other company, but are we doing it in a healthy way? Are there side effects? Are we pushing too hard? Are we organized in the right way and so forth? And then finally, one of the things we focus a lot on is organizational robustness. And that is, of course, a challenge when you're growing fast. But robustness for us, we have different measures. What's the average seniority of our managers? How long have they been in their current positions? Because, of course, if you have a lot of managers who are totally new in the positions, that could create instability. What's the turnover of employees? What's the turnover of our high performers? We have a rating system in Novo Nordisk. So every employee get a performance rating every year, 1 to 5, which is tied up to bonus and all kinds of stuff. And we kind of, for simplicity, call those who get 4 and 5 our high performers. And then we, of course, measure, can we keep those in the organization? Because that's probably going to create stability. So that's the kind of, we want an high performance, but of course in a healthy way. And of course in a robust way so we can handle the growth going forward. And of course, I don't know you, but in pharma, the pharmaceutical industry, there's a lot of documentation requirements. So we have an endless amount of documentation and data for everything. So there's a lot of people measuring stuff Every day you get some kind of a scorecard with whatever performance we look at. For us, one of the most important things is to distinguish between organization design and organization development. And design is very much focused on structure. How are we organized? Who reports to who? Where are the staff function? Where are the manufacturing and so forth? Development for us covers organizational design and all other activities which aim at improving the effectiveness, the health, the efficiency of the organization. So organizational development is design and much more. And that's a very, very important distinguish for us, because a lot of people just focus on the design. Should we move one department or the other? And it's a very limited perspective on what we think organizational development is. And organizational development, as I said, aims at improving the effectiveness. Are we doing the right things? Efficiency, are we doing it with limited resources, of course, and the health of the organization. So this is one of our models, and we probably stole it from some kind of book because they're all the same. One of the things we made a little bit different, there's two things. First of all is when we say diagnosis, we focus on going below the symptoms. So you have a lot of absence in one department. Why? Is the strategy unclear? Is the workload too high? Is it a poor manager? I don't know. But we have to investigate. So we always look into wherever we have an indicator which goes in red, what are the symptoms below it? And maybe sometimes it's not just one symptom, it's one root cause, there's more than one. So of course in a company, it's very, very tempting to jump into solution mode right away without having analyzed the problems. So we always try to keep our manager, don't rush into solution, figure out what exactly the root cause is for this symptom you've seen before we go into it. And then the other thing we stress is actually over here, where we're implementation, reinforcement, and adjustment. You always have to reinforce your solution. It's not just designing it, you have to communicate. And you have to make adjustments, because whatever usually solution you come up with in terms of doing something different is never going to fix everything anyway. So you need to make some adjustments. You learn as you move forward. So for us, it's actually the first and third box are the two most important, and most of our managers are dying to go right into solution design. But say, no, you understand the problem first, and you actually ensure that it works afterwards. That's much more important. When we say organizational design, what kind of interventions, what are we looking to do when we want to make the organization work better? And these could be different stuff from the STAR model. There's a different way of categorizing. Leadership development, training the managers. Maybe that's the problem for the whole organizational dysfunction. Maybe it's because they don't work well as a team, and we see that a lot. Managers are usually people who get promoted because they're quite strong characters, and that means they're not necessarily great team players. And that's something we sometimes struggle a little bit with. You have a lot of big egos in the room, and you want them to work together, actually. Strategy. Is it clear? Is it communicated? With strategy, communication is probably one of the recurring problems we see the most. And a lot of managers will say, but I have told them, I have communicated. And I always say, yes, but they haven't got it. So you have to do it more in a more creative way. And I just want to point out down here that restructuring, which is then organizational design, is still a good solution, but it's one out of many. And usually this is more or less, for me, in a prioritized order. When we go in and do intervention, it's usually these things we think are the most important thing to do in prioritized order for us. That's my experience in the 10 years in the company. Okay, I want to just drag out briefly 3 key learnings over the years in terms of what's difficult or what's important around organizational development. This, my favorite picture. Anyone in here speak French? Must be, right? What does it say, the text? Yes? This is not a pipe. What is it? It's a drawing or a picture of a pipe. It's a huge difference between a pipe and a picture of a pipe. And my parallel is this. This is not an organization. It is a drawing of our organization. So if you fix some of these boxes, you not made a reorganization, you made a new picture, which hopefully will represent reality. But a lot of people sit in offices and draw new pictures and think, oh, I reorganized. I'm such a successful manager. But it's just a picture. Actually, if you want to see what it really looks like, this is the real organization. So you can see these guys are brothers, owes you a favor. There's a threesome going on over here. Actually, here's the partner who calls the shots. This person sleeps with this person. So this is how it really looks. But you can't draw this. Sorry, I just couldn't. The other point we're trying to say is there's two perspectives on approaching the whole thing of organizational development. A lot of people say, this is how do we want the puzzle to look? How do we want to put the pieces together? That's one starting point. The other is, what kind of pieces are we trying to put together, and then can they be put together at all? It's like, this is the metaphor I use for how you develop organization, fixing it on the fly. And by the way, imagine being this person, and you have never seen that bike before. You've seen bikes. You've seen organizations. But you have never seen this one. But you are supposed to fix it while it's flying. So sometimes you can get a little shaky. If I kind of go the wrong way here, this guy is on the ground. So I need to be very careful which buttons to push. So our metaphor is that we're trying to fix an organization, but it's never year zero. We're right in the middle of it all the time, and we have to fix it on the fly. Another way of saying this is a retired professor of political science. He wrote a boring article in 1959, which had a great title. It's called The Science of Muddling Through, how you work politically. And I think this is how you work with organizational development too. It's a model, but there's some kind of science to it. We have a star model, we have a structure, but it's very messy. But we try to have some kind of systematic approach. But the big learning is that 20 years later, he was asked to write a new paper, equally boring paper, but even better title. Still modeling, not yet through, which is kind of a very key learning when you develop organizations. You're never done. It's all the time. Every year you have to try to do something new. So the imagination that one day we'll have fixed this is not going to happen in our company, at least I can tell you very clearly. And this goes back to another sense. Sometimes, what is the role of the manager? And a lot of theory kind of gives the implicit assumption that you're over here. Working as a manager is some kind of architect with a strategic vision, makes inspired drawings of the world, and then it falls into place. I think after 10 years as a manager in our company, I'm at some kind of a blend of a mission, a magician, a cleaner, and a therapist. That's kind of more than the architecture role. It's not just about design, it's about living with limited resources, doing whatever is possible, a lot of not so strategic work, and then you have to take care of how people feel about this. So we always try to say to managers, yes, it's great to be a good strategic architect, but you have to be a wonderful magician, cleaner, and if you have some therapeutic qualities, that's going to help you too. The final learning I will say before I close is what we call the shadow of the leader. In many organizations, what you see in terms of culture, behavior, so is very much a reflection of the leader's personality. What he or she finds important, the organization finds important, and get prioritized. And one of the ways we work with this, we have a very simple model. This is an imaginary leader from faraway land. He's called Tom Leader. That's a great name for a leader. We used to say people have qualities, right? So this leader, some of the qualities he brings to the job, some of his strength as a leader is that he has very deep business knowledge and is a very passionate and energetic person. In our company, we have quite a few of those. Of course, any core quality, anything you do, you can do too much. So if you do it too much, it becomes your pitfall. It doesn't fit the situation anymore. And this person who has deep business knowledge, one of his pitfalls is that he gets involved in all details because he knows better. He interferes in everything and he becomes quite controlling because he thinks he knows all the details. His passion and energetic side means that he's pushing people very hard. He's very hectic. He's coming up with tons of initiatives, and things get a little confusing. That's his personality. You can say, oh, that's him. But given that he is the leader, this is going to show up as organizational systems. So people will complain about centralistic decision-making. People will say there's no empowerment around here. We don't feel there's a trust here. They're always double-checking what I'm doing. You will probably see indicators of stress. And a lot of people will say, I don't understand the strategy, or there's too many priorities. So for us, it's very often when you come in and you just see these symptoms, this is a problem. Most often I would look for what is the core qualities and not least the pitfall of the leader. That's probably where you find the root cause for wherever, if you had to simplify. And I had to just pick one of the things in a STAR model. I would look for leadership as the one who's most decisive. So that's what I wanted to say, and I'll move over to you.
Thank you. Just going to feel free to have a drink. Give me 2 seconds. We have a technical issue that needs to be addressed so that I can, if you need that, that's it. We can start with the questions. However, for those of you who might or might not know, I use my iPad to get questions from the panel over there, the educational team, and it is not working with the internet properly, so I can't see the questions, which is kind of a problem for me. So we will start with the basic questions, and that is, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very good and entertaining. How has the organizational change, the Novo Nordic way, for example, impacted the company over the last 10 years?
Yeah, we have, as many companies, we have a set of values. If you go on the website of any company, they will have 5 to 7 values, and usually it's the same values. And I make a little fun of that always, because I think some of the values are very obvious. So companies write, we are very ambitious. What else would you write? Unambitious? We value open and honest. I don't see anyone writing lying and deceitful. So the problem is that every company is having the same values, but do you practice them? And we have a lot of processes in place to say it's so important for us that this is not just a fancy brochure or words on a website, but that we actually live it. So when we're growing, we have something called the Novo Nordisk Way, which is 10 principles, which is very much what every company has. But of course, we would claim that we try to use that as a guideline when we're growing. So everything is talking about scaling the Novo Nordisk way. Can we still be the Novo Nordisk company when we move from 40,000 to 50,000 to 60,000 and so forth, and growing in a lot of countries which are very far away from the mother country, culturally and geographically. So that's, of course, something we try to make the values be alive and not just statements.
Okay, so in keeping with the fact that you're ever growing because of this horrible epidemic known as diabetes, from an organizational standpoint, how do you ensure that as you're growing the company and you're getting new leaders on board, how do you make sure that they follow the Novo Nordisk way? How do you implement? How do you ensure that it actually goes through every level?
Yes, there's 2 or 3 ways. First of all, we have onboarding program, and that's a very clear program. Every new employee, wherever you are in the world, has to go through the corporate onboarding, which is both an online, it's a test, and it's a full day, and then you have to add on that locally to make. So that's one way of protecting the culture. Then we have a group of what we call internal auditors. Every company has internal audit, but it's usually financial audit, IT audit, quality, business ethics. We have organizational audit. So I was actually an auditor for a couple of years. That would, as an example, I would go to a factory in Japan. They know I'm coming, but when I'm there, I will interview managers and employees and ask them questions. How do you feel about working here? Do you think your manager is a good manager? Is the strategy clear to you? How is your work-life balance? What would you like to see changed in this organization? So all of these are we living up to the 10 principles? And based on that, when I visited Japan, as an example, I would write a report. They will get a grade. They will get findings, actions they have to follow up through. So every year we do these what you call internal organizational audits, which is a way of checking, are we actually living up to our values? And that's proved to be a very strong process.
Okay.
I know your technology is back.
Now, hopefully, the technology is back and working. God love technology. Okay, well, perfect. And that leads us into, so what are the factors that the Novo Nordisk, that are used in the audits? And how would Novo Nordisk determine what instigates a reinvention of this model? It took a 90-year-old company, and just 10 years ago you created this Nordic way, and now you're on the cusp of doing something new with the Nordisk way.
I think we're actually, this audit process has been in place for 16 years. Okay. We developed the first Novo Nordisk way 14 years ago, and we had a revision last 4 years ago. So about every 10th year. We don't do it more often because, you know, we're in pharma industry. It's a very stable, long-term industry. I'm working with some people in production. We're talking about when the factories will be ready to operate in 2023. So that's our time horizon. You know, it takes 5 years to build a pharmaceutical factory. So everything is long-term, and of course that is reflected in the values. So we don't just flip them around. So, and I think the current version, which we developed 4 years ago, is 90% the same as the previous version. It's just more crisp, a little bit more global, and so forth. You know, it's some funny things that now we have 10 principles we call the essentials. In the former version, we have 10 principles we call the fundamentals. But what happened in those 15 years, that fundamentalism was no longer in fashion. So we thought essentials was a more neutral way of saying it.
Okay. Now, that also being considered, have you seen, I mean, there's the global epidemic, as we mentioned. So now that technology, now that the competition, now that the health issues, the external factors are influencing, of course, always influence what happens in business. Are you finding that you have to revisit the models, I mean,
yes.
more often because suddenly you are at risk of competition or...
Yeah, our risks is, competition, of course, a big risk. But our risk is more business ethics. That there's a very strict laws related to medicine, of course, and we can all be very pleased with that. But of course, there's a lot of rules for what our sales representatives can do with the doctors, in terms of, you know, and some would say, you know, it must be very easy, but it's very amongst gray zones, except some, can you invite a doctor out for lunch? Yeah, you can, but there should be a formal medical program for that visit. Can you document that? Yes, you can. But of course, there's a lot of gray zones here. So we are, of course, worrying a lot about our people not violating business ethics. First of all, because we shouldn't. The other part is the social media these days. So if we have someone in one hour, we have 15,000 sales reps all over the world. If someone violates something, that can explode up very easily. So yes, in a global world, a lot of competition, a lot of pressure. We have to reinforce these things very extremely. So everyone has to go through a new e-learning on business ethics every year to make sure nobody gets confused about what you can do and what you can't.
Okay, so speaking of this global magnanimous approach with the company, how do you ensure that the culture, you touched upon it a little bit, but let's go a little bit deeper, the cultural context. Now, how do you implement something that grows out of headquarters in Denmark across the global country?
Yes.
I mean, across the global corporate environment?
Yes. That's been debated all the time, and it's a concern, and we do different things. I think many in our company think that the challenge to our culture is not where you grow, but it's the sheer size of the growth. So it's not that we grow in countries very far away from Denmark, because we find that you know, the employees, the kind of company we are, we attract the same kind of employees all over the globe. The scale is a little different, but they're still kind of looking for some of the values we have in our company. But it's very different. When I joined the company, we were 16,000. Now we're 42,000. It becomes bureaucratic, it becomes impersonal, and all of these things we don't want. So that's the concern more than, oh, we're growing in India and in China. That's not less of a problem than we are growing from 40 to 60,000, and that's all big companies are usually very impersonal. You're just a number in the big, and we don't want to be that.
Right.
So how can we be the exception? That's a concern to us.
Okay.
So we have, as an example, one of our values is called we always strive for simplicity. It's another way of saying kill bureaucracy. Nobody likes bureaucracy, and big companies have a lot of bureaucracy, so it's always being pushed. So if you propose something, someone will say, how is this in alignment with what we call Essential 9, simplicity? That's a valued way of bringing the values right on the table and saying, this is not simplicity, this makes it more bureaucratic. So that's one of the ways we try to kind of keep the culture.
Okay, now I'm thinking, now that's more corporate culture, but I'm thinking also culturally speaking, for example, do you deal with things like Hofstede in terms of how everything is implemented in India versus how things are implemented here on home turf?
Yes.
Or do you use other models for
we don't use Hofstede's model explicitly, but of course it's his thinking is all over everywhere, so I think we are also influenced by that. But yes, so we have the audits, as I said, so they do go around all the time around the world to kind of see how is Novo Nordisk way being practiced in this sales office in the faraway land, and how does that work? And of course that's being fed back every quarter to executive management. Here's the trends and tendencies across your company. So there might be some things we need to communicate clearer, or we need to measure in a different way, and so forth. So I think we have a lot of processes in place to kind of monitor what's the actual reality across our organization. And I think another, there's probably a majority of Danes here. Danes are quite outspoken. So on our globe share intraweb, when there's something, there's always people can post comments and nobody holds back. There's very few people are afraid of, oh, what would the CEO say? They don't care. They're just saying, this is a stupid decision, I don't agree, blah, blah, blah. And it's wonderful. Of course, you want those debates.
Essentials 9.
Yeah, and every time we're in the media in a negative way, usually we're in the media in a positive way, but when in the media in a negative way, there's a lot of internal debate, and people are challenging our executive management and saying, yeah, we're actually agreeing with the reporters here, so tell us why we should be proud of working. So they're definitely being challenged all the time that we always make the right decisions and stand by our values, also internally. A lot of pressure internally to live up to the Novo Nordisk way.
Okay, and we're going to be wrapping up with the questions here, but let's get back to the STAR model. Now, we talked about the STAR model, you're familiar with it, and you explained how your model is, how it kind of connects to that. But if we go a little bit deeper, why do you think that it works for Novo Nordisk to have an integrated thinking using something like the STAR model?
Because things are connected, so you can't just turn one knot and hope it's going to be an isolated effect. So every time we do something, it always has side effects. Simple example, some years ago, 5-6 years ago, we have a problem that we're working too much in silos. People are kind of growing up through the same system all the time. So we say we need more rotation. And actually we're going to measure that. So we want to keep an indicator how frequently are people rotating. Then everybody starts to rotating like crazy. And of course, then we have to say, no, that's maybe too much. So every time we kind of set direction, give strategic direction, and have some success criteria, is the risk that that becomes an end in itself, and if people forget why we did it. So everything is connected. You have to be, in a big organization, very careful that if you push one button, it's going to have tons of implications all over the place. So that's why we like to think in this STAR model. Make sure that this culture, its structure, its process, its competence, its leadership, and you have to kind of make these things fit as well as you can. Okay,
now in terms of, for example, motivation rewards, the rewards section of the STAR model, what would you say, how would you characterize Novo Nordisk's approach to the reward system? You mentioned it a little bit.
Yes, we have what we call a total rewards perspective, which means a lot of stuff. And it's very interesting because the normal thinking is to say that, yeah, there are differences. Most people in our company is on a bonus scheme. So you get bonus, and you get the highest bonus if you get outstanding, which is the rating number 5 and 4 and so forth. The bonus schemes are a much bigger part of salary in sales. Because that's what people say, they are more motivated. There's probably less in some other parts of the organization, but I think most people like money. So even those who say, oh, I'm motivated by total different things, they like their bonus too. But of course, we're trying to say that it's a total rewards. It's kind of the most important. You need to be competitive on salary and you know, the real hardcore benefits, but that you have a great job, which gives you a lot of, we invest a lot in training and development. We monitor our managers very closely because it's important to have a good manager. Nothing can ruin your work life as a bad manager can. You work for a successful company, which is a safe place to work in terms of job security. We like to think that we're doing something good in the world, diabetes care. Of course, in Scandinavia, you don't see diabetes as a problem because almost everyone who has diabetes has been diagnosed and is in good treatment. But on a global scale, there's about 400 million people with diabetes. Half of them don't know they have it. They're just suffering from amputation, blindness, kidney failure, all kinds of. It's a killer. Of the half of the 200 million who know they have diabetes, only half of those have any kind of treatment. So out of the 400 million in the world with diabetes, 300 million either don't know or have no treatment for a life-threatening disease. And out of the 100 million who has treatment, at least half of them is in very poor treatment. So it doesn't really help them. So it's a huge global problem. In the US, it's a major problem in terms of real complication, amputations. I saw some statistics. There's a lot of daily amputations in some of the big cities in New York, in the US, in New York, just based on diabetes. So it's a terrible epidemic. So of course, we think bringing better and better products to the people with diabetes is a great thing. And we are for many of our meetings, we bring in diabetic patients to tell how our products help, and it's very inspirational. And people like to work for a company with a good cause, which I think is also what we're trying to do in terms of motivation.
Okay. Well, thank you. Let's move on to questions from the audience. Yes, we have a mic. Søren is coming with the mic. Please state your name and ask your question loudly.
Hi, I am Michaela Skovgaard. So when you diagnose a bad manager, what do you do? Do you fire the person? Do you train the person? Because, yeah, that's basically the question. It can be
both.
Elaborated, but
We terminate managers if there's some kind of violation of any severe thing. That's a termination reason. We terminate many managers every year. We try to retain some of them, and we move some of them out of a managerial role. I think there's a pressure in most companies that you get promoted because you were a great specialist. That's kind of impossible to avoid. And not all great specialists are great managers. So sometimes we promote the wrong, and then we'll say, actually, we like to keep you in the company. This is just a poor match for you.
Okay.
Would you like to come up here, Michaela?
Yeah, so you were, when you, I lost it. Anyone else?
Okay, we have somebody here in the front. We can come back to you, Michaela.
Hi, my name is Manuel.
Hi.
There are a lot of companies right now that, well, or either they have been undergoing restructuration or they will undergo restructuration. What would your insight be, or your recommendation for an effective restructuration? What first steps to take, or which considerations to take into account?
Yeah. First of all, to not see it in isolation, as the STAR model says, that you can restructure as much as you want, but the way you measure performance, the way you reward people, the way people understand the strategy, all the processes, you have to make sure that not some of these things are working against your new structure. And I think it's very easy to get caught up on the structure thing, I think, because then you feel as a manager, now I've done my part and now someone else will take over. So that's the one thing. I think also you have to be very clear on why you're doing it, because there's usually kind of easy to jump into it. It sounds like the most easy thing, right, to make a new drawing. But for me, thinking the whole thing in thorough detail. So now that we're reorganizing, how will this actually work? Picturing it, where will the problems come with this new reorg? And one of the problems is, of course, that there's a lot of people who needs a total new role, and there will be a lot of anxiety and a lot of confusion related to that. So one of the things we also see, people totally underestimate the time it takes before the new organization is actually working. So, oh, we reorganized, but that's 6 months ago. Yes, 6 months is nothing in that time frame. So, and that's where people start getting impatient and so forth. But I think understanding everything is connected, and it takes a lot of time. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Mikla has found her question. Yay. There you go.
So on top of before, does most of your managers come from within, or do you hire from outside?
Most come from within. We don't have I think, we like to promote our own because we like to create career opportunities for our own. I think it's 70 or 80% internal, something like that.
Okay. I heard you were trying to hire, 20,000 new employees over the next something?
Yes. A lot of engineers. We're dying to get more.
Okay, well, that's good news for us,
Yes.
I guess. You also said that most of your managers, or at least a partial of them, were egos.
I think most people are egos. But
Okay, that's it. But is it a good thing or a bad thing that you hire egos? And do you think that these egos hire more egos? Is it an evil circle, or do you look for non-egos?
I think it's a fact.
Okay.
Whether it's a good thing or bad. No, I think that's usually when I work with this, I just start with whatever I see. And of course, I can have my own opinions about whether it's a good or bad. I just see that usually people who get into managerial position are the ones who are kind of sitting on the front of the chair. They're a little more energetic, they're strong, they're very confident, blah, blah, blah. And that's just how it happens, right? And the higher up you get, the more years you've been on the edge of your chair, and you have a strong character. And of course, that's not always easy to get them to work together. So, yes, you're dying to say something. Yeah.
So how many managers do you manage?
Myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 in my. I'm moving into new jobs. I'll have 7.
Oh,
but
congratulations!
Luckily, I'm a low ego myself, so it'll be fine.
Nice. Do we have any more questions? Yes, man in the green shirt. Here. Sarah has a mic for you.
Thank you. My name is Martin.
Hi, Martin.
Being a globally corporate, how do you ensure that you have, or do you have any techniques which facilitates a decentralized decision making?
I think that's our culture. We have grown that way, and we have been very successful for many, many years. So then it kind of becomes, this is the right working model. So I think actually a few years ago, we had a global company do a little assessment of our organization. And what they found was that people outside Denmark thought corporate headquarters worked better than people in the headquarters themselves thought it worked. And this global company had never seen that anywhere else. Usually people in headquarters think we're brilliant, but all the regions out think you suck. But it was opposite, and I have a theory about that because we're so decentralized. So I think all our regions feel, luckily, headquarters keeps away, and we in headquarters feels very frustrated because we have less influence on them than we would like to. So for our basic principle, I would say, is decentralization. That whatever can be made decisions locally is better made locally. And I think that's proven successful for us. Of course, that's also some of these kind of principles are not by design. You just happen to do it, and it worked, and then you think it's the right thing to do. So this was probably more right when we were 20,000 than now when we're 40, and will probably be more of a difficult model to retain when we become 60,000. But there's a lot of people who think this is great, this is fantastic. It's more fun to work in a company where everybody has a little more influence than if everything is raining from corporate. So we just have it, luckily.
In form of teamwork, or how do you facilitate?
I think it's also about being very clear about when you do corporate processes and so, how much detail do you have to develop things into, or can people, and is it a suggestion from corporate, or is it you have to? And we try to, a lot of it is like, I'm working in a lot of talent and leadership stuff. It's very few things I decide. I would say this is from a corporate, from my professional perspective, the best way to do it. If you have a better way, you can do it differently for most things. A couple of things that you have to do it the way I want it. But that's what we're trying more in that way. So not deciding too many things from corporate. So a lot of people who join our company find that they see this structure compared to some of the other big American pharma. We're very, very decentralized.
Thank you.
Migla?
Yes. So on that, what sort of tools do you give these teams to solve their own problems? Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, of course. Most of the time, we kind of expect that we have hired very bright people and we promoted great managers, so they can probably solve their own problems. But then you have problems which go across. So we're experiencing some challenges with stress. It's very high work pressure in the organization. And then, of course, we say, oh, we see this all over. So then we develop some tools. So here's a process you can go through. Here's how you can monitor it. Here's some resources you can pull from corporate. So wherever we think the problem is sizable enough for us to have a concept for it, we develop one. So we have one for how we work with talent reviews, with climate survey, with stress, and so forth. So it's a little bit kind of whatever. So of course, sometimes we develop something we think is just great, and we hope there is a need for it. But a lot of the times it's more like, what are the problems where we think people benefit from getting a tool instead of having to invent something themselves? But people love to invent stuff. People think that what they develop themselves is most user-friendly. So you always have to bear that in mind. But of course, it's a resource constraints also.
So if you have a team in India, let's say, that develops a very fantastic tool, how do you distribute that? How do you monitor? Oh, they found something really nice. How do you get it?
Two different ways. One is that the auditors who go around and visit all, they're going to come by India at least every second year. And if they pick up something that this is best practice, it's going to be put in a best practice database, and it's going to be pushed a little bit. The other thing is that we have global meetings. So global finance meets global legal. I'm in global HR. So I meet with all the HR people once a year, most of them at least. So the HR person in India is going to tell me, I have a fantastic concept. And I'll say, great, that's interesting. And if I think it's fantastic, I from corporate will put it on the corporate website. I will push that as the best practice. So I think we are pretty good at picking up the best practices.
Thank you. Would you describe Novo Nordisk as a matrix business model, or the other way, if you're familiar with the term?
Yes, of course, there's matrices on matrices. It's nothing but matrices. But formally, it's a functional organization.
Okay.
Yeah, but of course, there's 140 dotted lines across, and we usually we are functional, and then we say we have a different concepts we call boards and committees, which kind of are taking care of alignment across.
Okay. One more.
Okay. What is your distribution between women's and men's in the managerial level?
Not where we would like it to be.
And where would you like it to be?
Closer to 50-50. I think we have 40% women and 60% men, and our total average of employees is 50-50. And we're actually looking into a lot of things there because we've been pushing this for some years now. And for us, it's kind of where we measure it at the higher levels. It's moving forward, but it's not moving forward as fast on the lower levels. And that's a little bit of a mystery to us why it isn't cascading down. So we're looking into that. But yeah, we think we have a problem there. Of course, we benchmark with all kinds of companies, so I can say how great we are, and we're very good in statistics, but it's not where we want it to be. And this is not, I would like to say, because we think, oh, women will bring all these wonderful feminine values and we'll all be like a family. I don't think that. I think women are just as talented as men in all respects. And if you see it on an average university, they'll do just as well. So obviously we must have some biases in our company, which means that we're missing out on some of the talent pool, because we must probably deselect. I don't think we do it consciously at all, but sheer numbers indicate we deselect someone. We have an implicit bias that we think a manager look like this, and I think we're missing out on some of our talent pool. That's a problem, and we're always trying to get the very best manager we can, and it's we need more good managers. So I think why are we not looking carefully at the whole talent pool? Why are we having some kind of skewed here? We're not pleased with that.
We are going to take 2 more questions down here. Yes?
Hello, my name is Javier.
Yep.
And
Javier.
I would like to ask you, we are talking about the disadvantages of having big egos. Does it have any kind of advantages?
Oh yes, many. There's nothing worse, I think, for an organization than confusion and so forth. And most of these egos are very common. We're going this direction. Sometimes it's the wrong direction, but at least everybody's walking in the same direction. So I think it's a lot of decisiveness. You need to make decisions. You need to move forward. You need to create clarity. You need to protect your organization in conflicts or disagreements with other parts. Speak on behalf of your employees and so forth. Many advantages, and disadvantages is that not always the best team players, and that's a side effect which we don't have to deal with. I think it's generally a good thing. It's a good thing to be confident as a manager, and a lot of the times you have to make a lot of decisions where you are not sure, but you have to say this or that because we can't wait, and then confidence is a good thing. Of course, if you have self-reflection, so you are aware of the fact that you sometimes make mistakes, that's even better. Yes, I think there's benefits.
Javier? Okay.
My name is Mina. As you told that you hire every year a large number of people, and I want to know, how could you be sure that the persons you are hiring fulfill the values of the company? Do you have any method for choosing the people, or do you have any method for training them in order to fulfill the values?
Yes, first of all, recruitment is such a big thing for us because we hire so much. We have a very structured recruitment process with very clear steps you have to go through with these kinds of tests and so forth. And increasingly, we kind of screening for what we call business ethics, right? That people don't have anything that doesn't match with ours. And for some of the critical positions, it's even a more thorough screening to make sure that they match the values. So we're very concerned about that all the time. So different kinds of tests and approaches to check that we get the right people in.
And I saw that many big companies have some kinds of tests for to be sure that the persons that they are want to hiring have fulfill some values. And I just want to know how you would become sure that the person who is, for example, doing that test is the real person that you want, or maybe he or she is just showing.
It can happen, sure. And I don't think there's any guarantee for that. But of course, we are also all the time monitoring the effectiveness of our tests, right? And we're doing a lot of after-hire assessment. So 3 to 6 months later, there's a lot of assessment. Was this a good hire? Did it in terms of competencies, values, all of it? And if it wasn't, what can we learn from that? I'm pleased to say that we've been growing for so many years, so I think our recruitment machine is very well tuned. Of course, we still make mistakes, but basically I think we have experience there. But we're always looking into if that needs to be improved in one way or the other, because we start to make some systemic mistakes.
Okay, we are going to actually take a question from the lady in yellow.
Hello, my name is Maisa. I want to ask you, does it occur that some of the employees challenge the direction you're walking to?
Oh, yes.
And how do you deal with it?
Now, course, it happens all the time at the department level, team level, all the time, and also at the higher level. As I said, Denmark is a culture where there's a tradition for speaking up, and that means that a lot of decisions are being challenged. How do you deal with that? At least there's a strong culture for responding, right? So people, executive management is in dialogue, and corporate communication, all of them try to give, this is the reason why the company has this position on this and that and so forth. Yes, so I think I like to believe that we have a culture where you can challenge. There was a recent internal assessment whether bad news really travels up, and we found that it does. Of course, people are always a little bit careful what they say, and they know that some of the statements are not as welcome as others, but in general I think we do that, and it's very much one of our values, open and honest, and as I said, every company has that, but we try to check and if it's actually being practiced.
Okay, you guys are very, very enthusiastic, which is always good. So we are going to continue to take a couple more questions. So first you? Yeah, it's okay. Bring it on.
Going back to my first question, organizations or companies such as Ford and Kellogg's have been shrinking. They've been cutting positions in their organizational structure. So I think that probably functions are changing a lot as well. Tasks like people will be getting more responsibilities instead. What would be your insight on how to assess, or in your experience, do you do responsibility assessment, or how do you accommodate or organize these new functions?
In terms of that they get more responsibility, or?
In terms of just reorganizing or getting more responsibilities or different responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm not, but I can tell you that for all managerial positions, we do a kind of an assessment of the weight of there's a scoring system. So how heavy is this position? So based on a lot of factors, number of reports, external, internal communication, the depth of professional skills needed, the need for innovation. Based on all that, you kind of assess how heavy is this leadership position, and then of course you need to both compensate accordingly and hire someone with that profile. So we make a lot of assessments, what's demanded in this role. And that's one of the things, the benefits of being a pharma company. Sometimes it's a hassle, but we have so much documentation, so there's job descriptions and performance targets. So it's pretty good to assess what is the requirements here and what kind of a person do you need to fit into that to be able to carry that load.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dennis. Coming back to the question before, you mentioned the Danish culture of speaking up. How well does it work, for example, in India, where the basic culture is completely different?
Yes, of course it works differently, but that's where I said earlier that I think that our culture is, the scale is not the same. So we have maybe some characteristics, but even in India, we have people who are from that end of the scale in India. But I think, yes, of course, But it's sometimes it's kind of interesting because we have, for example, an internal whistleblower. So I've seen a violation. I don't dare to say anything here. They're going to chop my head, so I'll write it on the whistleblower and so some corporate auditors. And a lot of these come from outside Denmark, I would say. So in some countries, you're thinking they're actually thinking they can get a lot of things done through that channel. But of course, that's a concern also, and we're looking into if you have no cases of people expressing any from one. That's a bad side too. So we're trying to monitor it, but of course, it's a concern as there's very different cultural approaches. But sometimes I'm surprised. It's maybe just my own cultural bias, but some places I think, gee, I didn't expect them to be as vocal, but it's definitely right in your face, which is fine.
Okay, I'm going to just have...
Hi, I'm Amy. I just had a question on the business ethics. Mm-hmm. So how do you set the rules or limits? I mean, is there a set department, or like do you collaborate with medical and then consumers? Or?
Oh, yes. And this is not by department, this is corporate, and this is the law, and there's no exceptions. And sometimes people say that we are too tough because we don't make exceptions locally. So you have... maybe it's a bad example, the one I remember. So we can pay for a doctor to attend a medical conference, maybe something like that, but not to bring their spouse. but in some of the Arabic countries, we have female doctors, and by local law, they're not allowed to travel without their husbands. And then our internal says, well, that's just too bad. We're not going to violate this principle anyway, which of course the local business thinks is a huge problem because this doesn't fit their culture. So we're thinking this is such a dangerous territory. So we're walking on the very safe side all the time. And this is one of the things where there's absolutely no local decentralization. Do whatever you think. It's coming down light, and you get a very clear sense in our company. There's no exception here, and you are in very back to terminating managers. Business ethics violation is a sure way out of here. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to finish off with one final question, and that is, you were speaking about how you were looking for more engineers. So I'm just wondering, why? Why engineers? Why do you think they would be so well suited for Novo Nordisk?
Yeah, but I think in Denmark we are expanding in two areas, R&D and production. Production is all from supply chain experts to chemists to people who know the processing. So we just have a lot of technical jobs in our company, a lot of them, growing like crazy these years, hiring thousands in Denmark. So we're definitely looking for all kinds of engineers, I think. So keep your eye on our website. There's tons of things being posted all the time. Also next year, don't worry, we're here to stay.
So opportunity is knocking. Well, thank you so much, Bård. And
Thank you.
thank you. We are going to take a short break. Okay, at 11:15, we're going to return, and we're going to have Søren and Sara connect the dots for the strategies and capabilities. Okay, thank you.